What would you do if you could do anything in the whole world? If you had no obligations, nothing holding you back, what would be different? A man on his deathbed was asked, what would he have wanted to do better? He answered with one word: love. What do you really value? How are you meant to live? Know this, my beloved brothers. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls.
All right, James 1, there's a ton of stuff to get through today. And I'm going to do my best with the hopes of not going through it too quick and leaving you all behind. James is one of these guys that you run into that is, he's smarter than he knows it probably. And so he can say 100 things in one sentence. And this is what we're going to try to do today. We're going to try to look at verse 19 primarily, but this phrase that the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God is, it's like the New Testament minus Revelations, just kind of like down into one verse. And I don't want to just skim over it, because James is making a connection here with the rest of what he's written so far. And if you run through James, you're reading it and you're just skimming through it, and you're like, that's a good point, that's a good point, that's a good point. You're going to miss the connecting thought. What is driving James to write his epistle to these Jews? So for the sake of review, I want to review real quick, just off the top of my mind, James 1, how we've gotten up to verse 18, verse 19 as of right now. So James starts by opening his letter by saying he's writing to these Jews that are dispersed out into the world, technically, out of Israel, because of Stephen's stoning. So these are Jewish families that have been uprooted and placed in new places, new homes. All right, they are surrounded by Gentiles. And he tells these Jews that, hey, count it all joy when your faith is tested. And that word test means to prove what you are. All right, and the idea is you will go through afflictions in life in order to show you that you are a child of God. Okay? And so he says, count it all joy, because this will provide or produce steadfastness in you. You will be steady everywhere you go if you count it all joy when you go through afflictions, knowing that God is making you new. And then he moves in and says, well, if you need wisdom, right? If this affliction is too hard for you, ask God for wisdom to help you get through it. And he will help you. He will give it to you. But don't doubt. Do not doubt that he will give it to you. And the man who doubts, the woman who doubts, is driven like a wave of the sea by the wind, just here and there. All right, and so this doubting idea actually is brought up a little bit later, right? The guy who is in and out of the house of God, in and out of the refuge of God, in and out of the home of God. All right, so the doubter, don't doubt. Have faith in God. Trust that God is using your circumstance, your pain, your affliction to make you new. And then he seems to just jump on money. But if you see the correlating thought, he's saying, don't trust your money. If you're poor, don't tell yourself you need more money to get through this. Rejoice in the glory of your humility. And if you're rich, well, rejoice in the fact that you'll be brought to nothing one day. And therefore your glory will be revealed. And then he moves into using this idea of temptations. Don't say God is tempting you in your testing. That word tempt and test are almost identical in the Greek. He says you tempt yourself. When you dupe yourself, you deceive yourself, you lie to yourself, and you entice and you lure yourself out of the home of God. Like that faith, when you doubt, you're removing yourself from the faith. You see, so James is kind of tying this together, all to say, if you have faith, stay put. Don't say God is tempting you. This comes from you, from deep within you. You lie to yourself when you say God is causing my affliction for my harm, to bring evil about me. And then we bring up verse 18. I want to sit on this for just a minute because we're moving into it's not a new thought, but what seems to be a huge jump into talking about anger. Of God's own will, He brought us forth. I'm going to personalize this, all right? This means you. He brought you forth. God's own desire, He brought you forth. God brought you forth. It's another way to say He brought you new birth. You were born again as a child of God because God wanted it to happen. Last 2 weeks we had this series, Emmanuel, that God wants to be with you. Revelations 21:3, He will make sure it happens. God brought you forth because this is what He wanted to do. And He did it by the word of truth. He brought you forth by the word of truth. Now, not necessarily because you heard it and therefore you were born again, but this is a word of truth, and we'll spend next week talking more about this, that was implanted into you. It didn't process through the mind and trickle down the heart. It bypassed the cognitive and went straight to the heart. A new heart, Ezekiel says, not a heart of stone, but a heart of flesh. The word of truth, which tells me that there's word of lies all around. If I can't hear the word of truth, if God gives me the word of truth, then what else is out there? Everything that's not truth. If God is the bearer of truth, if Jesus is truth Himself, then everything outside of God and Jesus is obscurity to the truth. It may be partially filled with the truth, but it leads to death. You need the truth. You need the truth to be born again, and God gives it to you. It's more than just information for the mind. That you should be a kind of first fruits of His creatures. It literally means first in line to receive His blessings. I thought Jesus would be in front of you. But no, you are the first fruits. Because the Father has conformed you into the image of His Son. Therefore, you receive an inheritance and an heir that is identical to Jesus. An heir to the kingdom. He is called your brother. And in Romans 8, you are being conformed and transformed into His image. This is the only way you can be a first fruit of His creatures, is to be just like His Son. Anything subpar would put you behind. You are being made into the image of God again. And specifically to look just like His Son. And James will get into this, and we'll get into this, and I think in 2 weeks. You are a first fruit of His creation. You have a kingdom waiting for you. A city, you have a city built by God Himself, being protected by God, and the angels, and the cornerstone is His Son, waiting for you. How incredible is that? That is mind-blowing, boggling, and if you're just skimming through James trying to pick up some nuggets here and there, you're going to skip this stuff. But here's where we start to encounter a problem if we're honest with ourselves. Do you feel like you are a first fruit of His creations? that you are first in line to receive the blessings? Do you feel as if you are what he says you are? Or do you feel worthless? Do you hate yourself? Do you have low self-worth? Do you believe others should be in front of you? Do you believe that you are not righteous and made holy and perfect? And do you believe it because of your past? Do you believe it because of your experiences in life? Do you believe it because what you have been told about yourself, what others have said about you? This is what we're going to begin to dive into today in the next few weeks. Because to take our pledge and to stick with it, we have to figure out what produces righteousness in us. We need to know it. We need to know it. Believe it, know it, trust it, have faith in it in order for it to come out and produce righteousness. So now we seem to make a big leap here. Know this. I mean, you can feel the hard transition. I do it all the time by preaching. Know this, my beloved brothers. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to anger, or slow to speak, slow to anger. I mean, a perfect 3-point sermon would be in and out. I just can't do it, though. Because this next phrase, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Let me read the next passage, come back to this. Therefore put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. You can feel the connection between these two verses. The angry man is full of filthiness and rampant wickedness, and he needs to have a meek heart. He needs to be meek to receive the implanted word, which seems kind of at odds. I mean, how do you receive something that's been implanted into you? Okay, so, I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. But the part that has me scratching my head is, why does James need to bring up the fact that anger does not produce the righteousness of God? Here's what we do typically as humans, as churchgoers and Christians. We justify our anger as being the righteous anger of God. Okay? And there's some room for that. But I don't fully have the mind of Jesus yet. So I don't want to just jump to that and say my anger is okay, and therefore I'm okay. I want to assume that James is talking to these beloved brothers and he has something here to say to me. That I'm trying to produce my own righteousness. That you're trying to produce your own righteousness. And it says the anger of man. He identifies it. It's not God's anger. It's the anger that belongs to man. Does not produce the righteousness of God. It almost sounds like a no-duh statement. I mean, why do we even have to bring this up, James? Why do you need to tell me that anger doesn't make me cool in front of God? That anger doesn't make me right. Why do you have to tell me that me being angry is not what God's, it's not God's plan for my life? It doesn't fix what is broken. This is what we need to be unhindered from. Anger. Anger. And I want to go very deep within you to hear what James is saying. James is saying a slew of things in this one sentence, in this one statement, that the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So we need to understand what does produce the righteousness of God. We need to understand, why is he saying this? What is it about anger? What is anger doing in me? And if we can understand if we get in James's mind and can think like James, we'll be on the path of fully understanding what he is saying here. Know this, my beloved brothers. Know this. Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Now, do you see the tension in that verse? What causes me to be angry? Listening to people who have a different opinion, a different belief than mine, and trample all over mine. People who talk to me and insult me are people who cause me to be angry. people who open their mouths to attack me cause me to be angry. My anger doesn't stir on its own just because I'm sitting under a tree, or maybe a bird will, I don't know, drop one on my head or something. But largely, it's people that stir my anger. So James, in one half sentence, says this: be quick to hear and slow to anger. Does James not understand that it is listening that stirs anger? Is James not aware of the psychology of anger and the emotions of anger and what causes anger to happen? Should we not just kind of push away from the people that we don't like and keep to ourselves in order not to be angry? No, he's going to the heart of the problem here. He's going to the heart of the problem here. He's trying to get to the root of our anger. And if you can get this, then you can listen to people and be slow to anger. You can tame yourself. I want to just real quick talk about a few of these words. It seems like no-brainers, but I think it's going to help us as we move forward. Listening. When you sit and listen to someone, as you're doing right now, or you may do over lunch, what do you reveal about yourself? You reveal that you have a level of honor and respect for the person that's speaking. You reveal that they are worth listening to. You reveal that there's worth in them, that they're worth your time. There's value in them where you will let them have a space in your mind where their beliefs can penetrate. So listening reveals that you have respect and honor for people. And this is what James is saying. He's not saying listen in order to hear all their beliefs, take them all in and process them. What he's saying, and I'm short-circuiting some of James 1, is listen because you love. Listen because you respect. Listen because you honor. But it's hard to when people have a differing opinion about global warming or politics or religion. It's hard to listen. It's hard to listen without becoming angry when someone has an opposing belief to yours and you feel as if they're going to trample all over yours and they may not listen back. I was told something this week about this church, and I realized instantly it caused me to become defensive and angry. And I just stopped and said, why am I becoming angry? Because I love you guys. Somebody insulted me. Somebody insulted my church family. And it bothered me. And so I got a chance to just analyze what's going on in me. Why do I feel insulted? Why? I didn't even have to ask anger to come up. It just did. On its own, the animal rose, and there it was. And I was, what did it touch in me that made me so mad and angry? And I mean, we're good. We can hide this stuff. Nobody will ever know. But the anger stirred. But listening, I'm getting ahead of myself. Listening reveals that you have a level of honor and respect for the person speaking. Speaking. What does speaking reveal? The fact that I'm talking reveals I have self-worth. I believe I'm worth listening to. When you open your mouth and talk, you reveal something about your belief system. You believe you are worth being listened to. You believe that you are worth respecting and honoring. You believe that you take up space in this world and that somebody ought to listen. You reveal that you see that there's value in you. And there is. Absolutely. You are worth listening to. You have, I picture still Jesus at those tables with the prostitutes and sinners. And what was being said, we don't know. But I have a feeling there was a lot of listening going on. And not a lot of, well, you shouldn't say that. You really shouldn't be doing that. There was just a lot of listening. But here's the problem, is a lot of people are always armed with an answer. They're always armed with a defense because of the fear that the other person will not validate them. We are afraid to listen because we believe we will begin to compromise our worldview. And that fear is rational to an extent. But there comes a point we have to get out of this cycle. But before we get there, so quick to speak, those who speak are revealing they see some worth in them. When you talk, you believe you're worth being listened to. You're taking someone's time because you believe you're worth it. And you are. Now, quick to anger, someone who is quick to anger, someone who's quick to defend themselves, someone who's quick to push back, always armed with the answers, revealing something else. Not that just you're worth listening to, but you're worth being protected. But you're the one to protect yourself. Because you haven't fully stepped into the knowledge of the fact that you are being protected. But someone who is quick to anger, reveals that you believe you are worth protecting. And you are. Read John 14, 15, 16. Read the prayers of Jesus to the Father. You are worth being protected. Now, guys, I'm not getting off of James. I'm trying to get into James's thought process because of how much he's saying in such a little time. And this is, like I said, we're going to take 4 or 5 weeks to do this. But the angry person is protecting something, is defending something within them. And it's not just their belief system. Although, that's usually what stirs it. Someone comes in and wants to argue with you about religion or politics, and you instantly become defensive. You're trying to fix something that's broken. You're trying to fix something that is broken with you. You're trying to produce the righteousness of God by defending something that is broken within you. And James is saying that anger does not produce the righteousness of God. And so we have to get to a point of saying, okay, what is he driving at? That I myself am trying to fix something that I cannot fix. I'm trying to protect something that should not be protected. I'm trying to defend something that should not be defended. You have James 1 through 18. Remember, behind all of this, beliefs. Let's talk about your beliefs. Why do you believe what you believe? Not just about God, but about everything. You have an opinion about just about everything. Why do you believe it? Beliefs are formed when experiences are validated, or when experiences validate teachings. You're taught something in life, and then you have an experience that validates that teaching, and it builds a belief. Now, the belief in God is a little different because we call it faith. There's not always the evidence, but you're placing your trust in God regardless of your experience. You're placing your trust in God regardless of what you come to see to be true. This is the implanted word. But our belief system, our worldview is developed when teachings are validated by experience. And they harden. And they get, the more your experience validates what you believe to be true, the harder it is to move a person off that belief. Therefore, verse 21 of James 1, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. Meekness is the key here. Not anger, meekness. Receive the implanted word. We have to spend several weeks in understanding how do you receive something that's been implanted in you. But I want to put these two words next to each other, anger and meekness. I want you to see that they are like on the opposite ends of the spectrums of saying the same thing. Anger is an upsurging or impulsive passion, and this is from the Greek, I'm just not giving you the Greek, that results in wrath or evil punishment towards others. Another word for punishment, if you go to 1 John 4 in the King James Version, you see the word punishment is torment. Wrath or evil torment towards others. It is recognized as being the source of other evils. When you become angry, we may lash out at people. We may physically hurt people. We may verbally abuse people. We may go drink. We may, who knows what we'll do, but anger is a source of other evils. But meekness is taming, gentle behavior towards others. It's lenient activities such as punishment, or use the word torment. There's a similar thought in these two words, and it's how are you going to deal with other people, especially when they confront you, when their worldview hits head on with yours. I was picturing those hot geysers at Yellowstone. You know, they'll be up to 456 degrees. The closer to the surface, the core of the earth you get, the hotter they get. And if you're anywhere near these geysers and you get the steam on you, it'll burn you. And this is what I see anger as being something that wells up deep within us. But those who are close to us may get burned by it. It doesn't produce righteousness of God. I want to show you this in a very pathetic graphic form to explain to you a little bit more about what's going on. That is you. Okay? The little stick figure guy up there with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a straight body and no face is you. And you're there all by yourself. Right? You know yourself. You're in a world, you're very aware of yourself, your needs, your pains, your emotions. You're aware of yourself. That's you. And you have your exes, your experiences in life. They surround you. From the very moment you started to breathe to this moment right now, you cannot escape the fact that you have experiences. You have life. It happens. You live life and you experience life. No dodging it. You have your exes. And then you have your teachers that have direct access to you. They bypass everyone else, and they're allowed to speak directly to your mind. And the younger you are, the more direct connection they have to your mind. I realized, the P's were just standing out. I just kept going. Parents, peers, pastors, preachers, politicians, professors, and any other P you could think of that has direct access to your mind. These are people that you really can't say no to. They're going to teach you what they believe about life. They're going to give you their worldview, and you're going to be forced to process it. Well, now, if you've got experiences that validate their teachings, you will begin to develop your worldview, your beliefs. We're not off James. I need you to hang with me. Like I said, we're trying to peel back what James is getting at. And these people are shaping the way you think. What did Paul say about your thinking? It needs to be renewed. We have to change it. But it has to change not according to them, but according to the word of truth that has been implanted in you. But the problem gets kind of complex. Because these people, they all have their exes, and they all have their teachers that are feeding them their worldview. And they have to go through the same process. And it just exponentially gets greater and greater. And those people are fed their worldview. They're being morphed and conformed into what their teachers are saying, their experiences, and so on and so on and so on. And do not boot me. We could keep going. This is the reason for the big screen. I kind of like it, though. I might keep it up there for a little bit. But there you are at the center. You are worth being loved. You are worth being listened to. You are worth respect and honor. And it seems like everybody wants to change your mind, to believe what they want to believe. What do you do? Another way to see anger. Anger attempts to value oneself by defending beliefs. You're trying to instill value. In a world that is all about everyone in the world, you are trying to preserve value that you know is there. Just to touch on Romans 1, you know there's an imprint of God in you. You know you're not just of dust and back to dust and it's all gone. You know there's life in you. And if no one tells you this, that gets swept under the rug, and you might have to be reminded of it. Or it brought back up. But anger attempts to value oneself by defending beliefs. And so after a while, we begin to develop our worldview. And it's our worldview. It's my beliefs. It's your beliefs. It is how I see life. I say the word beliefs. I know it's charged with Christian thinking or how we view God, but just broaden it to everything you think about life. Do you eat this food or that food? Do you drive this car or that car? Do you not drive a car? Do you vote Democrat, Republican, independent? Do you? And you have a belief for it all. You've formed your worldview. And there comes a point you're almost done hearing what other people think. Especially if every time you open your mouth, someone shuts you down with their worldview. You're done. You're too valuable to let people just trample all over you. I want to get inside this bubble, though. Okay? So the graphics continue to be bad. There you are. That's about life size. That's you in your bubble. Still no face. But there's something in you worth value. You can't really put your finger on it, but you know there's something in there worth your time, worth other people's time. And we call it the heart right now. Okay? There's life in you and it's valuable. And it's the most precious thing to you. And if someone steps on it, tramples it, doesn't listen to it, devalues it, you're going to protect it. If it happens in life, you actually become fearful that you will not be valued. And so what happens is we begin, our hearts, our central beings begin to be enveloped with fear. What will they say about me? Will they insult me or will they compliment me? Put it this way. Someone told me this week, take an insult and take a compliment. What does an insult do? Instantly triggers defense and anger. What does a compliment do? Well, it triggers a smile, a little bit of joy, a little bit of peace. An insult shuts you down, triggers the works of the flesh. We go to Galatians 5, and a compliment seems like it gives you breeding ground for the fruit of the Spirit. Somebody who doesn't value you and just wants to push their worldview on you, well, triggers works of the flesh. Your flesh begins to go into motion to begin protecting itself because there's something of value in there. Someone compliments you, and it seems like it triggers something different in you. And you can't call these things up. They just are stirred up. And then in this circle, you're surrounded by your beliefs. And your beliefs try to protect that heart, but in that belief is the fear. Someone's going to want to mess with your beliefs. There is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. There's no fear in love. If everybody walked around complimenting you day in and day out, you would not fear that people would not value. So you have to get to a point of knowing you're loved. Knowing you're loved. And unfortunately, it's not going to come from us. We can help. But perfect love isn't going to come perfectly from the people sitting next to you. Fear has to do with punishment. Or another word is torment. When you live in fear, you're tormenting yourself. You live in torment when you're in fear. The anxieties pick up, the depression weighs down. The flesh just begins working. Whoever fears has not been perfected in love. And we're not talking afraid of the dark. We're talking about that fear that is buried deep within there, that is afraid that you will be cast aside forever. And that would torment a person. Absolutely. Fear has to do with torment, with punishment. Not that God's going to slap you on the back, on the butt one day and send you to hell, but that you're rejected already today. We go back to our definitions. Anger is an upsurging or impulsive passion that results in wrath or evil punishment, torment towards others. The defense, push it out on other people. Push them down. If I can hush them up, they won't come at me. I won't have to feel it. And James says, listen to everyone. Be quick to listen. And this sounds impossible, but it's not. Meekness is pulling back the torment. I'm telling you, in the church, what we try to do is fix the belief system. And we can't. That is the absolute wrong approach. That is what God does. He gets in and fixes the belief. We are carriers of the word, and we distribute it in a way that is full of meekness and listening. All right, I'm doing all right on time. Here you are. You're at the center. You got your defenses up. No one blames you. I don't blame you. I do it. We all do it. We know we're valued. And there it is. That moment you decide, something's not right. I need help. I need to change. And for a brief moment, you open yourself up. And what happens? Someone takes advantage of it and shuts you down for you to retreat all the more. Someone takes advantage of it and sees that you're willing to listen, and they cram their beliefs down your throat. And what do? The defenses go up even harder. I've got a video, Dan and Shay video. I want to show you. It's a music video, but the story of it at the beginning and the end is a beautiful picture of this and what we can do to help each other be meek. But I want you to take careful attention to the first 30 seconds and the last 10 seconds. I want you to get a feel of the people sitting around this young lady and the one individual who did something different, and watch the story unfold through it. So that music video speaks so loudly to what James is trying to say. We've all been there. We've all been there. You've been there. You needed that person to step into your bubble, not to pop it, to step into it and just say, my name is, and laugh at a joke. Steve, 1 year sober, huh? It's awesome. Let's not be the tough crowd. The beginning of that video I thought was a perfect illustration of what the church can be often. Just the stuffy feeling of this is serious. We're not real around here. We are dealing with alcoholism. And then the use of someone just like her to help walk her out. Here's the deal with your anger. I know you may not be living in it out here, but that defense going on in here. You have to first trust yourself to God. You have to trust yourself to God and know He will protect you. He wants to be with you. He will ensure that you have everything you need to make it safely home and go from there. You have to know that first. Don't start by looking at us, because we're all trying to figure it out too. Religion, and we'll get into this also, is living out your beliefs. And James says it's worthless. It's worthless if you can't tame your tongue. Religion is worthless if you don't know how to hush up and listen to someone. In this, the love of God was made known to you, manifested among us, that God sent His only Son into the world so that we might live through Him. And this is love, not that we have loved, but that God has loved us and sent His Son to be the propitiation, to receive the torment of our sin. So we have come, 1 John 4:16 through 17, we have come to know and to believe the love that God has for us. To come to know and believe it. A new belief system. The love that God has for us. God is love. And whoever abides in love abides in God, and God abides in him. So I hypothesize what you want to do in life is love. You want to be quick to listen and slow to speak. I really believe that about you. But you're hindered if you're busy defending your value. By this is love perfected with us, so that we may have confidence for the day of judgment, because as Jesus is, so also are you in this world. How do we help each other? That's not aimed to pop that bubble around the defense bubble that people are protecting. Let's get in it and listen and show the respect and honor people deserve. Don't be ready to preach, but be ready to give an account for the hope that will be found in you when they're ready to ask about it. Beloved, let us love one another, because love is of God. And whoever loves has been born of God. You've been brought forth by the desire of God, and you know God. And anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. And that person is also. We're going to spend several more weeks just digesting this and bathing in it. Week 1, unhinder yourself from the defense that you have, protecting your value, and trust that God will protect it himself, because he wants to be with you.